Hi, folks. We're in the stretch run here. Just a few more days to go. The class officially ends on Friday at 11:59 p.m. I sat around an announcement today talking about getting your final paper in by that deadline. I received information from the school today, earlier this morning, that is a hard end date and time. I have to report your grades by 9 a.m. Monday morning, which means I have to have them reported in all intents and purposes, unless I'm going to stay up all night before I go to bed on Sunday night. So make sure you meet that deadline for your papers this week. As I said, the school has indicated that's a hard deadline. I'm not sure why they did it. Normally we would have till Wednesday, which gives us a bit of a cushion, but they decided we weren't having that cushion this term. May have something to do with the summer and how summer terms run. Anyway, you've got a discussion that we're wrapping up, kind of a summing up of the class in your discussion. Your post is Thursday, and again, since we have this hard stop on Friday, your replies have to be done by Friday night. So make sure you get that your replies part done. It's a little bit different. Normally you would have Thursday through Sunday to get those replies done, but it's original post due Thursday, replies due by Friday. And again, your papers due Friday. You cannot miss that deadline. So you want to make sure you're following the instructions. So let's just go over that. And here's what your paper's about. Critically assess the global disaster, including the subprime lending fiasco. Could this fiasco be avoided, and how? So the global disaster kind of relates to this whole era of the problems that started with Enron and WorldCom and all of that, and really kind of came to a peak with the economic decline, the recession that occurred primarily due to subprime lending problems. When a lot of the banks went out of business, and a lot of foreclosures happened because real estate just bottomed out and folks were in over their head, and they reached a cycle point where their loan interest rates readjusted, and they readjusted very high, or comparatively really high. And since they were in homes that they really couldn't afford, that made it almost impossible for them to make monthly payments. Coupled with a declining economy and people losing their jobs, that's what this is addressing. Some of your weekly PowerPoints address specifically the subprime, but do not rely on that information to do this paper. Go find some good research. I didn't write those PowerPoints, so if you use them, don't attribute them to me. Just attribute them to unknown author. But I would really suggest you go out and find some good research to use. And I'm sure there's tons of it, because it's just been a very interesting thing for people to look at and talk about, and do research and find out what really happened. And you can look in the news and you'll find all kinds of opinions, and that's just what they are, biased opinions. So your paper, 8 to 10 pages, and that's 8 to 10 pages of text. It does not include your title page. It doesn't include your reference page or pages. It's just the text. And it doesn't include any direct quotes you put in your text, because direct quotes aren't your work. So it's 8 to 10 pages of your work. You have to have a minimum of 5 current scholarly journal articles, just like normal. And make sure that they're scholarly journals, not magazines like Forbes or Business Week or even HBR. Actual scholarly journals, and current ones within 5 years, and make sure they apply. Don't be using research from Japan, because this is definitely a U.S. topic. It had worldwide implications for sure, but we're really focusing on what happened in the U.S. So you wouldn't want to study from the Middle East. You wouldn't want to study from Southeast Asia. You wouldn't want to study from Africa. If you use that, you have to show in your paper specifically how it applies, which means you have to talk about the methodology in the study. And quite frankly, if you do that, you don't have enough room to do this paper well, because you're going to use up a bunch of pages just doing that. So don't do it. I'm telling you, it's simpler not to use those resources, because you'll burn up all your time and energy and resources just trying to explain why it applies. So make sure it applies. If you're trying to make a point in one industry, like banking, if that just happens to be what you're looking at, make sure that a study in manufacturing really applies. Banking and manufacturing are very different. It's just everything about them is different. Governance is different in those two areas. How employees work are different. What requirements there are for employees are different. Stakeholders are different, and stakeholder expectations are different. So make sure your journals really apply to what you're writing about. So the whole point of this is to kind of bring together what you've learned in this class, find resources that you can bring together, and talk about critically assessing what happened. It's historical. Make sure you're using good scholarly work in that assessment. You can kind of set the stage with some non-scholarly stuff. Make sure you're citing it correctly, but don't come to a conclusion based on the opinion you find in a newspaper article or on a YouTube post. You're hanging your hat on something that's very weak if you do that. Make sure you're hanging your hat on scholarly work that was done properly and that's verifiable. Okay, and then talk about how it could be avoided. So all of the accountability and the ethics and things we've been talking about and looking at this week, you should pull from and address how this could have been avoided. How could it have been avoided with proper governance? How could it have been avoided with proper accountability? And what kind of accountability? Who was accountable? Who wasn't? What about ethical behavior? What about a code of ethics? What about an ethic audit? Those are the kind of things you need to bring together in your discussion for this paper. And the point is, it's going to show you've assimilated this information, right? And have built an understanding and can now apply it to this thing that we all experience, but maybe we're not involved in firsthand. Maybe some of you were, but I would tend to think the vast majority of us weren't involved firsthand, other than, we all deal with banks. So the bank I banked with got absorbed because it went under. So yeah, I was affected, I guess, but it didn't really change my life. Okay. Make sure you're bringing forward any feedback you've received on prior assignments, particularly your papers. You should be making those adjustments. If you had feedback about using the correcting formatting or proper paper formatting, just use the template I've given you. It's the simplest way to do it. As long as you're using that, you get it right. And as long as you don't change formatting or things in there. Things that are all cap need to be all cap. Things that are upper or lower need to be upper or lower. Last week we talked about your levels of headings. You're only going to have one level 1 heading. It's going to be your title at the top of page 2. Everything else will then be a level 2 or 3, maybe a 4, highly unlikely. Okay, so use the template. It's the simplest way. And as we've discussed a number of times before, no author's note on the title page and no abstract. Those things just aren't necessary in this class, so don't waste your time on them. You need to put your time to the real paper, to the 8 to 10 pages and getting all the things around it done right. And please don't wait to the last minute. If you wait to the last minute, you're just going to be out of luck because of this hard deadline. So give yourself enough time, get it done, get it submitted so that you can have a look at your Turnitin score. And if you have an issue, you've got time to deal with it. You don't want to be caught turning it in at the very last minute and either miss the deadline for whatever reason or being right up against the deadline, and then you get your score back from Turnitin and it's over 30 and there's no time to deal with it. It's going to be kind of fatal. So make sure you're giving yourself enough time and don't wait till the last minute. That's really about all I had to talk about this week. Gosh, you guys have made great progress. I hope you've enjoyed the subject matter. I know it's been a lot of work, and I know it's been a little rough dealing with all the requirements of APA, but hopefully as you move further down in your dissertation process, you're going to go, man, I'm glad I went through that because now I know how to do this. It's really the point. It wasn't I just want to make life hard for you. I wanted you to get the hard stuff out of the way in this class because it's a lot simpler now than farther down the road. And hopefully it helps in your future classes. So I've enjoyed it. You guys have done great work, made great progress. Your discussions have been really good. You brought a lot of a lot of color and flavor and background into those discussions, which are interesting for me. I live in a world that's defined by certain parameters, so I get to see other things that broadens my understanding. So I enjoy that and get to see your personalities come through in those as well. And you've made great progress working on really the scholarly part of what we're doing, the weekly assignments. So keep it up. Write a very good paper. I'm anxious to see what your final papers are like, and really anxious to read them and see what you come up with this topic. If you have any questions between now and there, shoot me an email. I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Please, please, please don't wait till the last minute. If you're running up against a deadline on Friday, there's not going to be a whole lot I can do to help you. So don't do that. Really shoot for having your stuff ready by Thursday. And when I went through my doctoral classes, I always shot to have my papers done by Friday night. They were doing Sunday. My goal was to have them done. And we had to do a paper, minimum 10, 15 pages almost every week. And my goal was to have them done by Friday at the latest, early Saturday morning, so it could sit a while. And then I could go back and look at it. And then I could do my APA review to see what I've missed or typed wrong. Plus, I can go back and look at sentences that just didn't make sense. They made sense in my mind at the time, but getting from my mind to the typewriter, something happened. So I came up with syntax issues, or the wrong tense or things like that. And so letting it sit for a while allowed me to go back and correct those kind of things. It was a very successful methodology for me, and I never ran up against the deadline. I was usually hours and hours ahead of the deadline because I did that. And I was working full time, doing living life just like we all are. So it wasn't like I was sitting around. That's all I was doing all week. It was what I was doing on my lunch hour and every evening. And once I got done with the 1 week, I was starting on the next week. So it was all just prioritizing my week and my time and making sure I had time to get all that stuff done and not running up against the deadline. So I encourage you to shoot for Thursday. If you can get most of your paper, if not all of it, done by Thursday, you're going to be in great shape. And I guarantee you it will be something you'll be much more pleased with. And the end product you'll really like if you can do that and let it sit. And 5 or 6 o'clock, whenever you get to it on Friday, one last review and then upload it and you're good to go. So again, it's been a pleasure having you in the class. Hope you got a lot out of it, and best of luck as you move on through your doctoral journey. Certainly you can contact me in the future if there's anything I can help you with. And again, if you have any questions between now and Friday, just let me know. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing your papers Friday evening.